Joe's meatballs keep you all aglow. Hey, yup, give 'em to your granny. And what's the away with goss and snivels? Take a few in hand. Suck 'em and see, you'll agree they're the best in all the land. Suck 'em and see, you'll agree they're the best in all the land.
My name's Anita Taulty. I've been part of Uncle Joe's for permanently on a full-time basis for 26 years almost. And prior to that, did on and off probably about 4 years worth of work experiences through college, university, different marketing sort of projects that I did. So sort of been learning about Uncle Joe's since I was probably about 17 and joined the company when I was 22. Initially for a short period of time, just for a job to do whilst I thought about what I wanted to do as a career. And 26 years later, I'm still there. So, I think that says a lot about Uncle Joe's as a company. It's a family business. They're fourth generation at present. And I think what happens when you work at Uncle Joe's is you become part of that family. It's a small company. Every single day is different. You can go into work thinking you're going to do one thing and it completely changes and you do something completely different, but it keeps it very interesting. It keeps it changing all the time. And being a Wiganer, it's something to be proud of as well. So many of us that work there have been there for many, many years. And I think that's just, as I say, it's a positive thing to work for such an iconic company in Wigan that we've all grown up with. So what I'm going to do tonight, it's quite, although there's a presentation, it's not very structured. I'll just go with the flow. I kind of know enough to, go whichever way that it goes. Tell you about the history, how the company started, and how we've gone through the years and where we are today and any interesting facts that we find. Feel free to ask anything in between, but also at the end, I will do questions and answers and hopefully should be able to answer most things that you ask. Having said that, I'm sure there'll be one or two thrown in there that'll stump me, but in the main, I should be able to answer most of them for you. So Uncle Joe's Mint Balls, founded in 1898 and started in the back kitchen of a small terraced house on Pat Lane in Wigan. The history of Uncle Joe's. As I said, it's a fourth generation family business. And what we say is we specialize in the manufacture of traditional confectionery. We always have done. Today we still manufacture, we still use unchanged methods. We manufacture by hand. And that's what's unique about us today. I think when the company started, that's how things were made. But today things are mass produced and we haven't changed to that. We haven't gone to that field, but that's what keeps us different and that's what keeps us unique in today's market. We now supply and manufacture in excess of 30 products. So predominantly we're known for Uncle Joe's Mint Balls, which is correct. We are probably 75% of turnover is the Mint Balls alone, but we do manufacture other products such as winter nits, herbal cough, winter candy, pear drops, throat and chest lozenges, and a different array of all hard-boiled sweets, all sugar, although we've now got a sugar-free version of many of the products as well, but all traditional flavours. What we try and do with the products that we manufacture today is stick with the ones that we've always done, the ones that we know the flavours work and the recipes work, but to not try and do the products that you're going to find in supermarkets, because in all honesty, we can't compete. We can't compete on the price because many sugar products today are manufactured really mass produced, and therefore can be done much cheaper than the methods that we use. So we stick with what we do. We stick with the ingredients that we know and we manufacture the way we always have done since 1898. Mr. William Santos. So the company name is William Santos and Company Limited. Many people don't know that because we're known as Uncle Joe's, but Mr. Santos was born in 1873. And as I said, was born in Pat Lane in Wigan. And he was the son of a coal miner. And that was his family history for many years before him, his father's and his father before him. Very early age, Mr. Santos decided he didn't want to go down the route of coal mining. So very early showed signs of having quite an individual business mind, and decided that he was going to go into fruit and vegetables. And that was his first sort of, let's say, career choice that he wanted to do in Wigan. In 1898, before 1898, Mr. Santos met what we like to call the sweet of his life, Ellen Seddon. He later married Ellen Seddon, and in 1898, they were married. And that's the year that the Uncle Joe's mint balls were first made. Uncle Joe's mint balls were made, as I'm sure all of you know, certainly being the history society. Wigan was predominantly a coal mining town. And Uncle Joe's mint balls were made initially to soothe the throats of the coal miners. So it was Ellen Santos, Ellen Seddon as she was, Ellen Santos, that created the mint ball initially. Mr. Santos had his fruit and vegetable stall, and she just made a product in her kitchen. And the reason being, it was to soothe the throats of the coal miners, the dust, the dryness, and just a little treat to put in your pockets and take down the pits with you. And that's how the Uncle Joe's mint ball started. So really it was the coal miner that sort of made the mint ball so popular. Very soon it was realised that the Uncle Joe's mint balls were actually more popular than the fruit and vegetables. So Mr. Santos allocated a little corner of his fruit and vegetable stall and started to sell the mint balls. It wasn't just for giving away to sort of family and friends that worked down the pits. He started to sell them and soon saw that actually this was more profitable than the fruit and vegetables that he'd started to do. The stall soon then became an Uncle Joe's mint ball stall, and the stalls were the market traders. You'd pick them up like carts and you would take them to Wigan Market and to other local markets by pushing and taking the products with you. He became friendly with what we call the Atty family. Now, the Atty family owned the Swinley Confectionery Company, which were also traditional manufacturers of hard-boiled sweets. Mr. Santos used a lot of their knowledge, which they passed on very freely, to help develop the Uncle Joe's mint ball and the business that it had created. They gave tips, they gave help, they gave advice, and some say that this is where the name Uncle Joe came from, that one of the members of the Atty family was called Joe, and the product was named Joe after the help and the advice that they gave into making the confectionery. The second sort of story, or one that can run alongside, is that Joe, just in 1898, was a very friendly, very familiar, very comforting name, and everybody loved and everybody had an Uncle Joe. So it was a friendly name, but also we'd like to say that it was a thank you and a nod to the Atty family for the help and advice that they also gave Mr. Santos and his wife. In 1919, the factory where we still are today was commissioned to be built. So you can see us here from the from the railway line, which some of the surroundings have clearly changed quite a lot, but we still remain. The gable end of the factory still painted very visibly, as we like to show the people passing on the trains from Glasgow to London that Uncle Joe's mint balls is made and bred in Wigan. The factory was built for £2,412. This is the bit where I'm going to have to look. 14 shillings and 10 pence. And as I say, we're still in that factory today. It's an amazing building. It's full of history. Every day you go into the factory is like a step back in time. We stand in the offices wondering what conversations have taken place in that office where I sit. Who sat there and had conversations about mint balls just like we do? Where can we sell them? How can we keep this company going? What can we do to make some money? How can we make everybody try an Uncle Joe's? And to think that that conversation has happened in that room 100 years ago is quite unbelievable. It's an old factory. It's a little tired in places. But saying that, we're all up to date with all the accreditations that food manufacturing places need today. So we've got all of the accreditations, but we're a little bit quirky and a little bit different and a little bit step back in time when you come into us. We're certainly not all modern and new. So as I say, Mr. Santos from very early years showed a real business attribute. He was keen, he had a natural ability and knew exactly where he wanted to take the Uncle Joe's meatballs and what he wanted to do with the products. In the 1930s, it was a significant jump for the company. He became very creative and his marketing campaigns and such were developed. He created his own advertising. He created the artwork behind it and the many, many, many slogans that you see on the old advertising boards that we would use. Many of the slogans, literally 90% of the slogans we still use today because they're all relevant. The pricing on the adverts, however, are not relevant anymore. So Mr. Santos said in the marketing plan that he wanted to create something. As I say, this is in the 1930s, but this is exactly how we do marketing today. It's exactly what I learned on my degree for marketing 25 years ago. It's how to get your product, how best to get it to people, and how best to keep that product selling through. And that's really all you need to know. One of his marketing campaigns said, most people would like Uncle Joe's meatballs if only once they could taste them. This appears to be a proven fact. The basis of selling is therefore how can the maximum number of people be given an opportunity of tasting our product and how can our goods be made easy to buy? That's it. It doesn't matter what the product is. It doesn't matter if it's a product, a service, whether it's food, whether it's beauty, whether it's anything at all. That's really what you need to strive forward for the company. And we revert back to this time after time after time. If ever we feel, which way are we going? What can we do any different? This is what we do. How can we get the product sampled? How can we make people like them? And how can we make people keep buying them? You can see some of the old advertising campaigns here. So whether it hails or whether it snows, you can always keep warm with Uncle Joe's. Perfect for the winter months. Round and round it merrily goes, the family bottle of Uncle Joe's. Pleased to meet you, pleased to eat you. The sampling, he thought, if you go to the football match, if you go to the women and you go to the children, that's it. You've succeeded. If all of those people buy the product, we've succeeded with the marketing. Mr. Santos is the gentleman in the middle on the top right-hand picture. So just a little picture of him there for you. So the changes that have happened, certainly for us and for confectionery, has been quite significant over the years. So the product, the manufacturing of the product has never changed. So we still manufacture. We have big copper pans. We produce on open gas fires, and we use pure cane sugar, and that's why the product's still brown in colour. We use cream of tartar, and that's a grape extract, and we use pure peppermint oil, not a flavour. We use the pure oil, and that's all that goes into a mint ball. What makes it unique and what makes it different, and I guess will stop it being copied today, is that it's the way we produce that in that copper pan on the open fire. So when we cook the pure cane sugar, it's turned around the outside of the pan and almost taken to a burning point so that it caramelizes the sugar. If you mass produce, you can't do that with the sugar. You can't generally mass produce pure cane sugar anyway because it fluffs and a mass production, a big vat wouldn't cope with the fluff, let's say, of the sugar. So we've got to control it by the temperature, by the lids, and it's quite a manual thing to do. But that's how we still do it. So we've got a copper pan, a big gas fire, and up the product goes. It's then turned out onto what we call the cooling slabs. So they're metal tables. Within the tables, we have cold water that constantly runs through the table. Recycled, it goes all the way back through. But that then cools the product. So once the hot mixture is poured onto the tables, it starts to cool on the underside. And that's then when it's got to be worked very, very hard on the table. Otherwise, the bottom half goes solid and cracks and the top half stays solid. So it's got to be turned, it's got to be worked constantly. That's when we add the peppermint oil. If we put the peppermint oil in the pan, the peppermint oil would just burn off and the flavour wouldn't be there. So we add the peppermint oil on the table. If anyone's ever had a hotter than normal mint ball, which many people like, some people not so much, that's when the concentrated peppermint oil sits in an air bubble. So when it's bubbling on the table, if the oil gets within a little bubble, you've got pure concentrated peppermint oil. And as best as we try to mix this through and work by hand, it's like making bread. You're always going to have that little bit of something that's a little bit where it's not quite mixed in as much as the rest. So the 1930s was heavy on what we call the way out sweets. So the big jars, go and buy, it wouldn't have been 100 grams, would it? A quarter of or 2 ounces of sweets. Back then, unwrapped. So the paper bag would stick to them and a little bit of fluff out your pocket, whichever way you wanted to carry them round. But the 1930s was heavy on the way out sweets and the sweet shop. And a lot of these are coming back today, but that was our main supply, was to the confectionery, tobacconist, newsagent shops and sweet shops. In the 1940s came the sweet rationing. So Uncle Joe's mint balls were on ration. Obviously hindered the company, but everything, had to change at that time. So there was less demand, therefore fewer sweets made within this period of time. The 1970s, I guess, is the start of when we saw what we call cheaper sweets being imported. So your coloured sweets, your jelly sweets, your bigger ranges, mass produced, a lot cheaper. And again, that changed demand for us. And that was actually the 1970s was quite a difficult time because the demand for, let's say, the new kind of sweets was very high and therefore lessened the spend on the traditional confectionery. However, Mr. Santos, being as he was, and the company being as it continued, stuck to our guns and continued to manufacture what we do in the hope that this would soon come back as a trend. In the 1980s, slightly reluctantly at the time, we decided we had to slightly modernize in terms of to start going with supermarkets and people like that. And that's when we introduced the packet of sweets. So prior to that, as I say, it was a sweet jar. In the 1980s, we invested in a bagging machine and we still do those bags today. So that's where you're just going to go into your supermarkets or your shops and buy your packets of sweet. That was a trend, as I say, we were reluctant to do, but one that actually has probably kept the company going today. Well, in the 1990s, we had a special tin manufactured, and that was to commemorate our 100th year in 1998. So we created our centenary tin. So as much as we're traditional and unchanged, we use what we have as an advantage. So not many companies have got a 100-year-old product. So rather than create something new and a little bit different, we'll use what we've got. We'll do a commemorative tin and let's shout about that history, that tradition that remains with the company and with the family and with the town, of course. In the 2000s, the supermarkets drove us really hard. Again, it was a necessary step. So it's not necessarily what we wanted to do. We're very, again, traditional, ethical to our little corner shops and our customers that helped us start and have been there from day one. So what we tried to do is service them with slightly different packaging so as not to interrupt the other. But the supermarkets, and as they are today, are a big part of everyone's life. And again, a necessary part of something that we did have to change. In 2010, the product and the company still going strong. So we made a conscious effort to trade internationally. So we go to international trade shows probably a couple of times a year. And we market, we promote, we sell our products to the trade in various countries. And I have to say, the feedback is incredible because again, many companies don't have that history and don't have that tradition. So our first export market was America and still is today our biggest export market. And the Americans just love the history and the tradition behind the company because they don't have that. They don't have that 120-year plus company. They don't have an unchanged product. So they love the quaint British, English sort of product and history that we have. So America's a good market for us. We also sell into Japan. We do Australia, New Zealand, mainly to the expats. Europe's tough at the moment. Not going to lie. We've had many difficulties, certainly since Brexit, with customs and such, but we try, we keep going and we keep pushing harder. There's always markets out there, but as I say, generally different countries are blown away really by the history and tradition that we have behind the mint balls. Present day, so the last 5 years have been very, 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 very tough, as it has for many, many companies. The pandemic and Brexit coming pretty much together was very, very hard. We did have to furlough. We probably spent 6 months barely manufacturing. And this is where we have to thank the supermarkets because they could remain open. And that meant that we had somewhere to sell our sweets to. And because we do lozenges, because we do throat and chest, because we're considered slightly medicinal, the sales of the product kept going through. And actually those supermarket sales are what kept us going. Sadly, we lost a lot of customers. A lot of the small shops, as we all know, couldn't make it through, which is incredibly sad. But, you know, it's been a tough time for all of us. But we got through the war. We got through various other things over the last 100 years, and we're still standing today. And just about this year, back to where we were pre-pandemic. So it's taken us that long, but a bit of grit and determination, and we've got there. We're there today. There's more legislation coming in as well with the high in fat, salt and sugar regulations. So what that means is supermarkets can't sell sugar products close to the tills. We can't promote them. We can't have them in a hugely visible place. So, for example, Tesco Wigan, we used to have a huge big island near the tills. We're now just in the confectionery aisle with 4 or 5 boxes because we're not allowed to have sugar on display so much. Again, just another little hiccup there for us, but we'll get through. Hence the drive that we've done for sugar-free products. So we've got a new range of sugar-free, but in all honesty, we're known for sugar products, and actually our sugar products are much more natural, let's say, than the sugar-free range that we do. But sugar-free is on demand for the younger market and also our older, more loyal customers that are taking themselves away from the sugar diet. So our mission and strategy is to be the best handmade mint in the world. We're probably not there quite yet, but we like to think we are sometimes. Certainly in the northwest of England, we're ranked up there quite high. We sort of skipped the Midlands a little bit. I'm not sure what happened there. We do sell throughout the whole of the UK, but we skipped the Midlands and then we become popular again in the southern areas, but more in the premium sort of food hall and things like that. And our strategy is to always encourage people to enjoy the experience of eating an Uncle Joe's mint ball. There are marketing functions, as I said earlier. How does our product meet the customer needs? What's the value of our product? Where are the customers looking for our product? And how can we differentiate from other competitors? So the things we have to consider frequently is the distribution, how we get the product to make sure it gets to the right place in the right condition, and finance, something that Mr. Santos was very, very keen on. He was going to say tight. He was very careful with his finances, and we've got documents which are fantastic that sort of proved this. You had to take your empty pen back when it had run out to get a new one and things like that. But obviously that stayed with us, and every penny counts, and you look after the pennies and the pounds look after themselves. And as I say, in the past years, we've had a tough time. So that's been more important than ever, really. And there's Ian Hughes painting the gable end a few years ago. So new product developments and such. As I said, we stick very, very strongly to our core range, the range that everybody knows, the range that everybody's familiar with. But then part of the company does have to work hard at keeping up with the competitors. And what that means is thinking about developing and creating new products and new ideas. We change the packaging, we create new products, we change the weight of product, we change which then can make the price fit our customer. Some of the products that we do are sort of a little bit on trend. They'll run for a year or two and then we'll stop them. So gin and Prosecco have been quite high up there in the last few years. So we've done gin flavoured sweets and things like that. These products will sort of come and go. They'll hit the seasons and they'll do what they need to do and they'll support, but our core is still an all year round sort of range that we look after. We're also with the Uncle Joe's mint balls, again, because the product's so old. Back in 1898, there weren't any preservatives, there weren't any artificials, there weren't any colours, there weren't anything artificial that could go in there, hence the 3 ingredients. But what that means without us trying is that we can actually target the vegan market, the gluten-free market, no artificial colours, no artificial flavours, they're GM free. And as I say, this isn't an intentional thing. This is just something that we've luckily, had from day one and we've carried on. But that allows us to target more specific markets, and vegan and gluten-free are quite huge today. So quite important to us to put that on the packaging and highlight it. PR campaigns as well. We're quite fortunate, again, I think with the age of the company and such, that we get quite a lot of PR for free. Radio stations, television stations come to us purely because we've kind of always got a story to tell. We've got BBC Radio coming with us tomorrow all day. So Mike Sweeney, we're going to be on his live breakfast show tomorrow. He'll be interviewing the staff. He'll be looking round. And again, I think it's something that's a little bit different. There's not many companies that can offer that kind of history and allow you to come into the factory. And I think the one thing that we wish we could do is sell the smell with sweets as well, because, as you're manufacturing, people often come in and say, "What are you making today? We can smell it." But sadly, that's not something we can do. But to have people coming into the factory really does give a different sense of who we are, what we're about, and is that little bit more endearing. And then to have that sort of put through on the radio with BBC is phenomenal for us. So we're quite fortunate with that kind of thing. So you can see, so we've got the 2 managing directors, 4th generation, John and Anthony Winnard, up on the top right there. Seasonal, as I mentioned, seasonal products. So we're big with the treacle at Bonfire Night, which in the Northwest is, and has always been huge. And then sort of summer sweets, Father's Day, Mother's Day, any sort of gifting that we can do. And as I say, sugar-free is big for us as well. This is just some of what we've had over the last few years. We have a sweet panel. So we run a competition and we chose 6 sweet panelists throughout the UK. We run new ideas through them. We talk about flavors, packaging, anything that people think's important, and from all over the UK. So that gives us a better indication of trends and what's important at that time. Bottom left, that's us pouring the tables. So we were on Good Morning Britain. And then I think one of our biggest PR stories was when King Charles, then Prince Charles, came to visit us in 2019. And the reason he came to us, so in 2012, one of our directors was awarded an MBE. He calls himself the Mint Ball Executive. So he's quite humble about it, said that the MBE is actually for the company and all its employees, not just him, and of course his brother. But he was awarded that in 2012 for his services to the confectionery industry and for his plight to promote small businesses and to promote export and to promote traditional English manufacturing. When he went to Buckingham Palace, it was actually Prince Charles that awarded him the MBE, along with other people on that day. And when it was his turn and he went up to Prince Charles, and they did all the formalities, Prince Charles was asking him questions about Uncle Joe's mint balls and how we manufacture. And John, one of the directors, finished off and said, well, if ever you're in Wigan, feel free to call for a cup of tea. Wigan in us there. And he didn't quite write to us and ask to come for a cup of tea, but he did visit the Northwest in 2019. And the Lord Lieutenant wrote to us and said that he specifically requested to come to the factory and to see us because he's so interested in traditional English manufacturing. And 2019 for us commemorated the 100 years of the factory being commissioned to be built. So an important year. And he came on the 4th of April. So we've just had the anniversary, last week, spent probably just over an hour with us. He was only allocated 30 minutes, but they couldn't get him away. And he was absolutely blown away with the process. He went around the factory. He spoke to every single member of staff individually. He asked everybody questions. He touched the product. He smelt the product. And just genuinely was interested in the whole story. So that was quite a thing for us to have him there, in 2019. So, as I said earlier, the company, as traditional as we are with today's legislations, we have to work very hard to keep all the accreditations that's needed for supplying all the big supermarkets today. So it's not easy. They make you work very hard. Rightly so. It's a food product, and everything needs to be sort of checked and treble checked and all the rest of it for everything that we do. But fortunately, we're considered a low risk product, but the checks are quite intense. So we're proud to say that little company from Wigan has got all the accreditations in place in a factory that's over 100 years old. And we're able to supply alongside the likes of Cadbury's and Nestle and such. So we're proud of that. As I say, the packaging formats we've changed. So the manufacturing process, we are proud to say that we've kept exactly the same way as it is, but the packaging is on the production process where the investments come into sort of new machinery. So we manufacture the product exactly as it was, but then we've had to change and adapt. So the product's now wrapped. Not to everybody's taste, I know, but it keeps the shelf life of the product better. And Uncle Joe's mint ball is hydroscopic, so it takes in moisture and that will revert it back to sugar very, very quickly. So by putting the individual wrappers on, what that does is it extends the shelf life and it allows us to sell into the supermarkets, and it allows us to sell overseas because they dictate, a sort of 12-month shelf life by the time the product gets shipped overseas and then sold into the stores over there. So we have had to make changes. The machine that wraps the product, so our little flow wrap machine, it can wrap up to 2,000 sweets in a minute. So it's likened to a machine gun. It's that many that quickly, which is unbelievable because we're so slow and so handmade. And then we tip the product into this machine and it spits the products out that quickly. And then when we put the products into the packets or the tins, we've invested in machinery that prints directly onto the packaging as it's coming through. So we can even change the language. So for Japan, all the nutritional information, all the address information, all the ingredients, everything is in Japanese. But that's a good selling point for us. So you've got the traditional product, but you're meeting with the legislation that's required in different countries as well. So we're very old, but we try and be a little bit new as well. I think one of my favorite sort of little slogans, and it has been since day one of me starting with the company, is we're making sweets to make life sweeter. And it is what we do. I mean, I was going to say who doesn't like a sweet? There will be people, I know, but that's what we do. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We enjoy what we do. We go to work. We make a product that we're all proud of. We're proud of the company. We're proud of the heritage. We're proud of the town that we're from. And we like to shout about that as well. But I think it's a good little slogan to keep using that's been used for many, many years. You can see on the left there, that was the carnival again back in, I think, the 1930s sort of period. So it's always been used and has continued to be used today. So it's something we stick by. We're still working to the same goals that the company was set over 120 years ago. And it's just to provide customer delight in the products and the services that we offer. What we think we try and do differently and what we stand by is the customer service that we provide. So we're very, let's say, traditional in that sense. If you want to get in touch with us, you ring us and someone will speak to you. We don't have anything automated. We don't have telephone systems. If there's a problem, if the product's not to anybody's liking, pick the phone up, send us an email, send us a letter. It doesn't matter, whichever way anybody wants to communicate, and you will get a reply from one of us. We're a very small company and we've got to make ourselves unique. We've got to make ourselves different. And I think that's what we do. It's the way we manufacture. It's the ingredients we use, and it's the traditional ethics that have been given to us from when Mr. Santos started the company. So, as I say, we follow a lot of what Mr. Santos did. He was a very traditional Methodist. And when the company first started, you had to be from Wigan. You had to know somebody that already worked for the company. And you also had to be a Methodist. And that is how you got a job at Uncle Joe's Mint Balls. He wouldn't waver on that. He wouldn't change what he did. And he was a very, very firm, but fair managing director, company owner at the time. The staff worked Monday to Saturday, half day Saturday. And as a reward, very frequently, he would take the staff on staff outings, frequently to Wales, and they'd play rounders on the fields, and he would pay them for the time off. But he felt that his staff and the workers were what makes the company, what makes the sweets. And without them, there wouldn't be a company. And again, that's something that the directors today stick by. So occasionally they'll say, right, we're shutting up shop on Friday and we're all going out and we're all going to have some fun. Being a strict Methodist, Mr. Santos didn't allow alcohol. So we're probably not in the right place here, but it was said that on the staff outings, some of the sugar boilers would go to the toilet to the local village and would have a quick drink and then come back. But it was never to be known. We don't hide that anymore. We just have a drink if we want one. But it is what's followed suit. So Mr. Santos had just one child. He had a daughter. And in that day, you didn't necessarily leave the company to a female member of the family. So very early on, the family changed from Santos to Winard. Mr. Santos left the company to his nephew, who was Mr. Winard, and he is the great granddad of John and Anthony, who are the founders today. So Mr. Santos is the great uncle of John and Anthony. As I say, it's passed down. The name changes because he had a daughter. His daughter actually only lived another 12 months after him, and was said to have sort of died of a broken heart, let's say. So the company has been with the Wynnards since, but it is a family business and fourth generation. It's run very much as a family business, as I say. I'm 26 years. Met my husband there. He's been there, I think, for 34 years, something like that. So together, the four of us, John and Anthony, the directors, myself and my husband, the management team, let's say, we've got somebody in the office, somebody in the warehouse, and just 8 people in the factory producing the sweets. And that's it. That's us. There's 14 people in total, and that includes the 2 directors. So we're a huge, big brand name, certainly in this part of the world. People think Uncle Joe's Mint Balls is massive. We're actually tiny. We work Monday to Thursday and finish at lunchtime on a Friday, which is great. But it's a very, very big brand with a very, very small staff running. We turn over about 1.2 million, which dropped to about 700,000 in COVID. So as I say, we're just about coming back to that. Sounds a lot of money, but kind of isn't, I guess, when you look at the costs and such. But turnover is about 1.2, 1.3 million. And we finish our financial year end at the end of this month, which is looking to have increased again on last year. So fingers crossed we're doing something right and we can continue to do so for many, many years. But as I say, I think it's the ethics that were brought into the company when Mr. Santos started it. We run a tight ship. We work hard. We watch the pennies. And sometimes we just got to get our heads down and work through the tough times that come. And we've been through some, so I'm sure we can get through many more in years to come. I think really, for me, that's sort of Uncle Joe's tied up. I think what's important to say for us is we're proud of Wigan. We've no intentions of ever leaving Wigan. The factory might dictate a move at some point, purely because of its age, but at the same time, it'd be a heartbreaking decision to do because of the history that's in that building. But there will come a time when practically we need to move because it's such an old building. But we'll always be part of Wigan, and we hope that for many, many years to come, Uncle Joe's will be a big part of Wigan as well. We've been voted the top 3 things to come out of Wigan and within the top 10 things to come out of the Northwest. So we're alongside Rolls-Royce, we're alongside Boddington's Bitter. So we're quite proud of that. And that's for us, 14 of us in the factory in Wigan. We're incredibly proud. So we'll continue to do what we do and stick to what we know best, and that's making sweets. Somebody's just mentioned the Uncle Joe's Mint Balls song. So yes, there is one. Mike Harding, which was later copied by the Houghton Weavers. The Houghton Weavers are actually coming to the factory tomorrow as part of the radio presentation, but it's a fabulous song. It's I think, very Wigan and very quirky. I definitely will not sing it because you'll all go home very, very quickly. But if you ring us, again, I'm saying the personal touch, if you ring us and we put you on hold, that's what you'll listen to. So sometimes if we get a grumpy one and we think, oh, we'll just put you on hold for a second, and then when you go back, somebody's laughing at the other end.
Now there is a place in Wigan, a place you all should know. It's a busy little factory where the things are all a-go. Well, they don't make japes or Eccles cakes or things that hang on walls, but night and day they work away on Uncle Joe's Mint Balls. Uncle Joe's Mint Balls keep you all aglow. Give 'em to your gran and watch the bugger go. Away with coughs and snivels, take a few in hand. So come and see, you'll agree they're the best in all the land. We give one to a coalman's horse as it stood in the road. It give a cough, then it buggered off with its carton load. It ran to a dock race course, it were going like a bird. It covered all tracking, notice slack and compass second and third. Uncle Joe's mint balls keep you all aglow. Hey up, give up to and watch the bugger go. Away with coughs and snivels, take a few in and suck 'em and see. You'll agree they're the best in all the land. Me Uncle Albert passed away with ale upon the brain. The doctor said he were dead and would never walk again. So we'd give his corpse an Uncle Joe's, then stood back aghast. The corpse got up and ran to pub and spent Finsure at grass. Uncle Joe's mint balls keep you all aglow. Give 'em to your granny and watch the bugger go. Away with coughs and snivels, take a few in hand. Suck 'em and see, you'll agree they're the best in all the land. I had a girl, her name were May, in passion, she were lacking. So I fed her on brandy, get her handy, but still she won't get cracking. So I give to her an Uncle Joe's to get her all aglow. Now she walks the streets of Wigan, looking for Uncle Joe. Uncle Joe's mint balls keep you all aglow. Give 'em to your granny and watch the bugger go. Away with coughs and snivels, take a few in hand. Suck 'em and see, you'll agree they're the best in all the land. Wigan played away to the Wick, they were in St Helens town. They looked upon Matt's piece first. So, it used to be the same way in his first, didn't it? They looked upon Matt Pete's face, he had a great big frown. He said, get them tackles in, me lads, score some tries and goals. They said, sod off with them tactics, just give us Uncle Joe's. The RSPCA bought 5 ton of Uncle Joe's. I bet you did, didn't you? To give to all them animals to keep 'em off. The parrot now is 6'4", cat is 8'3", and all them poor bruv monkeys are as happy as can be. Uncle Joe's mint balls keep you all aglow. Give 'em to you. It's the bugger go. Away with coughs and snivels, take a few in hand. Suck 'em and see, you'll agree they're the best in all the land.
I'm sure there's not many that can sing it all the way through like that. So that was fantastic. Very good. Very good. But yeah, definitely a Wigan song and goes with our humour, I would say. I'll just very quickly show you this very short video. As I say, it's just to show you the manufacturing process. It's something that sadly we don't do factory tours. And again, that's to do with the age of the building. And I think that's one thing that if ever we move, we would cater in a sort of viewing gallery or something, because it really is amazing to watch. I've been 26 years at the company. I don't go into the factory that often just because of the nature of my job. But when I do, each and every time I still stand and think, wow, this is brilliant, you know, how we do it and the things that are unchanged. And as I said earlier, the people that have stood before us today and done exactly the same thing. So it's just a very quick mini factory tour, let's say.
There's a place in Wigan, a place you all should know, a busy little factory where things are all to go. They don't make jakes or Eccles cakes or things to stick on walls, but night and day they work away at Uncle Joe's mint balls. 'Cause Uncle Joe's mint balls keep you all aglow. Hey up, give 'em to your granny and what's the away with coughs and snivels, take a few in hand. Suck 'em and see, you'll agree they're the best in all the land. Suck 'em and see, you'll agree they're the best in all the land. Da, 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 da.
We're quite active with the social media. We're quite active with websites. We do newsletters every month. Tells you what we're doing as a company, any new products, any discounts, any offers, any fun things that are going on. We get involved with, we're sponsoring a couple of events at Hay Hall. So as I said, we're very proud of Wigan and anything Wigan and do what we can to support the local community as well. So take a look at the website, sign up for the newsletter and keep up to date with what we're doing.